The massive alien ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning, its hull gleaming like polished silver against Earth's blue sky. Military bases worldwide went into high alert, but the vessel made no aggressive moves. Instead, it broadcast a simple message in perfect English. "We come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Council." Captain James Walker stood at attention in the United Nations Emergency Chamber, his dress uniform crisp despite the chaos of the past 24 hours. As Earth's chosen military representative, he watched the alien delegation enter the room. Their tall, slender forms moved with fluid grace, their iridescent robes catching the light. The lead alien, who called himself High Commander, spoke through a small device at his throat. "We have watched your species for some time," he said, his voice carrying a musical quality. "Your achievement of basic spaceflight has qualified Earth for provisional membership in the Galactic Council." Walker noticed the slight emphasis on the word basic. He kept his face neutral, but his military training told him something was off about these visitors. Their body language showed subtle signs of condescension. The High Commander gestured, and a holographic display filled the chamber. It showed various human technologies, including their most advanced weapons. "We have analyzed your defensive capabilities," he continued, pausing at an image of an aircraft carrier. "Your reliance on chemical propulsion and projectile weapons is quaint." A ripple of what could only be described as alien laughter spread through the delegation. Walker's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. "Observe," the High Commander said, raising the small device. A beam of pure energy shot across the room, creating a perfect hole through a steel demonstration plate. "This is a basic personal defense weapon in Council space. Your most powerful missiles would be considered children's toys compared to our smallest ship's capabilities." The UN Secretary-General leaned forward. "You seem well armed for a peaceful organization. The galaxy is vast and not always friendly." The High Commander replied smoothly. "We protect our member species until they reach appropriate technological advancement. Your weapons, bullets, missiles, primitive nuclear devices, they speak to your technological infancy." Walker finally spoke up. "Those primitive weapons have served us well." The High Commander's expression shifted to what might have been a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Against each other, perhaps. But you'll find the galaxy operates on different principles. Energy weapons, gravitational fields, quantum disruption. These are the tools of civilized warfare, should it become necessary." The aliens proceeded to show more displays of their technology. Ships that could bend space, weapons that could disintegrate targets with surgical precision, shields that could absorb tremendous energy attacks. Each demonstration was accompanied by subtle glances at Earth's representatives, like adults humoring children. As the session ended, Walker accompanied the delegation to their shuttle. The High Commander held him back for a moment. "Captain, we understand this must be overwhelming. Your species' reaction is common among newly contacted civilizations. You'll soon learn to leave behind such outdated methods as projectile weapons." Walker smiled politely. "We look forward to learning from the Council." After the aliens departed, Walker sat in his office reviewing footage of the meeting. Something about their dismissal of human weapons bothered him. He pulled up historical records of warfare, studying the basic principles that had remained true for centuries. His phone rang. It was Admiral Thomas from the Pentagon. "Walker, what's your read?" "They're too dismissive," Walker replied. "No tactical commander would completely dismiss a potential threat, no matter how primitive it seemed." "Agreed. Keep playing the awestruck junior species. Meanwhile, I'm calling in markers. Every weapons lab, every research facility. I want them working on enhancing our primitive weapons. The Council might laugh at kinetic energy, but I've never seen a force field stop a physical object." Walker nodded, though the Admiral couldn't see it. "They're so focused on energy weapons and force fields, almost like they've forgotten about simple physics." "Exactly." The Admiral's voice carried a grim smile. "Let them laugh. We'll keep our missiles, our rails guns, Our primitive bullets. Better to have them and not need them than need them and not have them. Walker finished. He looked out his window at the alien ship still visible in orbit, its hull no longer seeming quite so impressive. Let's hope we're just being paranoid. But in his gut, Walker knew they weren't. The galaxy might run on advanced technology, but Earth would keep its guns ready, just in case. Sometimes, the old ways were the best ways. 3 months after first contact, the Galactic Council established their first permanent base on Earth. They chose a location in the Australian outback, claiming the isolated spot would minimize cultural disruption. The massive structure rose from the red soil like a crystal mountain, its surfaces reflecting the harsh desert sun. Admiral Thomas stood at his office window in the Pentagon, watching rain fall on Washington, D.C. His desk computer displayed a classified report about another species under Council protection. The Centaurians, a civilization from a nearby star system, had also been welcomed into the Council 5 years ago. Now their planet was little more than a mining operation. "This makes 7, he muttered, scrolling through similar reports. His intelligence team had spent months gathering data from various alien sources. Every story followed the same pattern. The office door opened, and Captain Walker entered, looking tired. "Sir, you need to see this." He placed a data tablet on the desk. Satellite images from around the Council base. "They're building something." The images showed massive circular structures hidden behind the main building. "Energy weapon platforms," Walker explained. "But they're not pointing up at space. They're aimed at our major cities." Admiral Thomas nodded grimly. Just like the others. The Centaurians, the Proximans, the Belt colonies, all of them got defensive installations first. Walker pulled up more images. "That's not all. Our deep space sensors detected Council ships placing satellites in orbit. They say they're for communication and cultural exchange." "Like hell they are," Thomas growled. "Those are targeting arrays. We've seen this before. They're building a noose, nice and slow." A soft beep interrupted them. The Admiral's secure computer had found another pattern. The data showed how each conquered species had their defensive capabilities gradually reduced, always under the guise of modernization or safety concerns. "Look at this timeline," Walker said, pointing at the screen. The Centaurians lost their planetary defense systems within 6 months of first contact. The Council claimed their primitive weapons were dangerous, insisted on removing them. 3 months later, the mining operations began. Thomas stood up and walked to a large wall map. Red dots marked Council bases spreading across Earth. "They're playing the same game here. Yesterday, they suggested we deactivate our missile defense systems, called them unstable and hazardous to orbital traffic. What did the President say? Told them we'd consider it." Meanwhile, the Admiral pressed a button and the map changed. Blue dots appeared, showing hidden military installations. Every major power got the same warning. For once, the whole world agrees on something. We don't trust these aliens. Walker studied the new map. Underground factories. Running 24/7. Officially, we're decommissioning our weapon systems. Actually, we're building more. Better ones. Missiles that can punch through energy shields. Rail guns that can hit ships in orbit. Armor-piercing rounds that ignore gravity fields. A knock at the door made both men turn. A junior officer entered with another report. "Sir, we just intercepted a Council transmission. It's encrypted, but our AI systems translated part of it." The Admiral took the paper, his face darkening as he read. "Primitive species showing expected compliance. Resource extraction can begin on schedule. Those arrogant bastards aren't even waiting to finish their plan." Walker picked up the data tablet again, adding new information. "We're not as compliant as they think. Russia's moved its entire missile production underground. China's converted old coal mines into munitions factories. Even Switzerland is quietly stockpiling ammunition." "Good," Thomas said. "Let them think we're just simple primitives playing with chemical explosives and metal bullets. Let them laugh at our outdated weapons. He turned to face the wall map again. Every time they mock our technology, they show us exactly what they're not prepared to defend against. A distant rumble made the office windows rattle slightly. Another council ship was landing somewhere nearby, its energy drives causing atmospheric disturbance. Neither man flinched at the sound. How long? Walker asked quietly. Until they tried to take over. Thomas shook his head. Soon. But this time will be different. He smiled grimly. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. And we got plenty of old ways to show them. The council chamber glowed with soft blue light as Captain Walker faced the assembled alien representatives. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the room's grandeur no longer impressed him. Behind their beautiful architecture and smooth words, he had begun to see the predators beneath. Your missile systems are dangerous relics, the High Commander declared. His voice carried the same condescending tone as always. 3 other members of the Council have reported tracking errors from your primitive guidance systems. They must be deactivated immediately. Walker kept his face neutral, though his hand tightened on his briefcase. Earth appreciates the Council's concern, he said carefully. However, our defense systems are a matter of planetary security. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows. Unlike the other aliens, this one wore simple gray robes. Walker recognized him as Records Keeper First Class, a minor official he'd met several times in the archives. Captain Walker, the Records Keeper said softly, might we speak privately? There are some technical details to discuss. The High Commander started to object, but the Records Keeper held up a hand. It is a simple administrative matter. Surely the Council has more important issues to address. In a small side room, the Records Keeper's formal manner vanished. He moved quickly, activating a small device that filled the air with soft static. Privacy field, he explained. We have little time. Walker studied the alien's nervous movements. You're not here about technical details. No. The Records Keeper pulled out a data crystal. This contains proof of what the Council really does to protected species. I've watched them destroy 32 civilizations in my lifetime. Earth is next. Walker took the crystal. Why help us? Because I was there when my own world fell. The alien's voice carried centuries of pain. We were like you, proud, independent, still using physical weapons alongside energy technology. The Council called us primitive. Then they took our defenses, our resources, our freedom. Images flashed on the wall as the Records Keeper activated the crystal. Planet after planet showed the same pattern. Council bases established, defenses removed, then massive mining operations that left worlds stripped bare. They're not failing to understand your weapons, Captain, the Records Keeper continued. They're deliberately ignoring them. Their shields, their ships, all their defenses are optimized against energy weapons, physical projectiles. He smiled grimly. Well, let's just say there's a reason they want your missiles gone. A distant chime made the alien stiffen. Council session ending. Take this. He handed Walker another crystal. Launch trajectories, shield frequencies, weak points in their ships. Your primitive weapons might find them interesting. Why now? Because Earth is different. You're not abandoning your old weapons like the others did. You're improving them. The Records Keeper deactivated the privacy field. When they move against you, and they will, make it count. For all of us. Later that night, Walker sat in the Pentagon's secure briefing room with Admiral Thomas and the Joint Chiefs. The crystal's data painted a damning picture. Their entire defense strategy assumes energy weapons, Walker explained, pointing to technical readouts. Shields that reflect beams, absorb plasma, redirect radiation, but simple kinetic impacts. Admiral Thomas smiled. Good old-fashioned bullets and bombs. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. There's more, Walker continued. The Records Keeper included tactical data. Their ships have blind spots, their shield grids have refresh rates. Gaps we can exploit. One of the generals leaned forward. Can we trust this information? The patterns match everything we've observed, Walker said. And it explains their behavior, why they're so desperate to eliminate our missile systems while ignoring our conventional weapons. Because they're actually afraid of them, Thomas finished. Those smug bastards have been playing us, trying to trick us into giving up the one thing that can hurt them. A young lieutenant burst into the room. Sirs, Council ships are moving into attack positions. They're demanding immediate surrender of all military installations. Walker met Thomas's eyes. Looks like we get to test this intel sooner than we thought. Good, Thomas said, reaching for the red phone. Let's show them why they should have taken our primitive weapons seriously. Red emergency lights flashed across military bases worldwide as Council ships darkened the skies above every major city. Their massive hulls blocked out the sun, creating artificial night across Earth's most populated areas. In the Pentagon's command center, screens showed identical scenes playing out from New York to Tokyo. 57 Council warships have entered low Earth orbit, a technician reported. Energy readings are off the charts. Their weapons are hot. Admiral Thomas stood at the central command table, his face illuminated by tactical displays. Right on schedule, he muttered, just like the records keeper warned us. The main screen crackled to life, showing the High Commander's face. His usual mask of benevolence had vanished, replaced by cold authority. People of Earth, he announced, his voice broadcasting worldwide. Your provisional membership period has ended. The Council has deemed your civilization inadequate for full membership. We now assume direct control of your planet and its resources. Captain Walker watched from the diplomatic shuttle ascending toward the Council flagship. He had been summoned for emergency negotiations, a transparent attempt to take Earth's military leadership hostage, just as they'd done on other worlds. Your technological regression is disappointing, the High Commander continued. Clinging to primitive projectile weapons instead of embracing Council technology proves your species is not ready for galactic civilization. Surrender your military installations within 24 hours, or we will demonstrate true power. The shuttle docked with the flagship, and Walker was escorted to the Council chamber by guards carrying energy weapons. The High Commander waited there, along with other Council leaders. Ah, Captain, the High Commander said, not bothering to hide his contempt anymore. Here to witness the end of human independence. The pity you wasted our generous guidance. Walker kept his face neutral. We appreciated the Council's guidance, but Earth prefers to maintain its own defense systems. Primitive stubbornness. The High Commander gestured to a large display showing Earth. Look at your weapons, chemical explosives, metal projectiles, simple ballistic missiles, while we command the fundamental forces of the universe. As if to demonstrate, he pressed a control. Energy beams lanced down from several Council ships, vaporizing abandoned buildings in the Sahara Desert. That was 1% power. Imagine what we could do to your cities. Walker watched the demonstration calmly. Impressive, but unnecessary. Earth has already prepared its response. The High Commander laughed. Response. Your missiles can't penetrate our shields. Your projectile weapons are useless against our armor. What possible response could you have? You'll find out in about. Walker checked his watch. 3 minutes. Alarm suddenly blared through the flagship. A junior officer burst into the chamber. High Commander. The humans. They're powering up weapon systems worldwide. Let them. The High Commander sneered. Their primitive weapons can't harm us. Launch the first wave of transport ships. Begin the resource extraction. Walker smiled slightly. You really should have taken our guns seriously. On Earth, Admiral Thomas watched the tactical display as Council transport ships descended through the atmosphere. All commands. Execute Operation Rolling Thunder. Show these arrogant bastards what primitive weapons can do. Across the planet, hidden missile silos opened. Railroad cars split apart to reveal massive rail guns. Submarine-launched missiles burst from the oceans. What looked like civilian cargo ships dropped their disguised panels, revealing banks of anti-orbital weapons. The High Commander stared at his displays in disbelief. Impossible. Your weapons were deactivated. We saw the power readings drop. You saw what we wanted you to see, Walker said calmly, just like we saw through your act. The records keeper told us everything. About the other worlds. About how you stripped them of defenses before taking their resources. It doesn't matter, the High Commander snarled. Your projectile weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Walker's smile grew wider. Want to bet your empire on that? Missile launch detected. The Council flagship's alarms screamed as the first wave of Earth's response began. Multiple launches, thousands of primitive projectiles rising from the surface. The High Commander watched the tactical display with amusement rather than concern. Let them waste their arsenal against our shields. Record it for the archive. Let future species learn from Earth's foolish resistance. Captain Walker stood quietly in the council chamber, counting seconds in his head. The records keeper's intelligence had been precise about the council's shield refresh rates. Timing would be everything. On Earth, Admiral Thomas coordinated the global response from the underground command center. Phase 1 initiated, he announced. All units confirm launch. The first wave of missiles looked primitive, exactly what the Council expected from Earth. Simple ballistic trajectories, basic chemical propulsion. The Council ship's energy shields flickered with blue light as they powered up to maximum. Observe, Captain, the High Commander gestured at the display. Your missiles approach our shields. Watch how superior technology handles primitive weapons. The missiles struck the shields, exploding harmlessly against the energy barriers. The High Commander laughed. You see, thousands of your best weapons, and not even a scratch on our weakest shields. Walker checked his watch again. Those weren't our best weapons. They were our oldest ones. The ones you expected us to use. The High Commander's smile faltered slightly. What? Deep underground. Thomas gave the next order. Phase 2. Let's show them what humanity's been working on. Across Earth, different launch systems activated. Rail guns mounted on disguised cargo ships fired magnetically accelerated projectiles. Submarines launched a new type of missile that could change direction mid-flight. Hidden mountain bases revealed massive coil guns that fired shells at incredible speeds. More launches detected. A council officer reported, still sounding unconcerned. Different signatures, but still primitive projectile weapons. Walker smiled. You really should learn the difference between primitive and purposefully simple. The new wave of weapons approached the council ships. These projectiles moved differently, following irregular patterns that the council's targeting systems struggled to track. Some broke apart mid-flight, splitting into multiple smaller projectiles. Their trajectories make no sense, a council weapons officer complained. They keep changing course without energy signatures. Mechanical course changes, Walker explained. No energy emissions for your sensors to detect. Just simple physics. The High Commander's amusement turned to confusion as the tactical display became cluttered with thousands of incoming projectiles. Shields at maximum. Show them the futility of their. He never finished the sentence. The first rail gun round passed straight through the energy shield and punched a hole through a council ship's hull. Impossible. The High Commander stared at the damage reports. Our shields are perfect against energy weapons. Yes, Walker said calmly. That's exactly the problem. You optimized them against energy attacks and forgot about basic kinetic impact. Rail's guns don't care about your energy shields. Neither do tungsten rods falling from orbit. As if on cue, the first tungsten penetrators dropped from Earth's hidden orbital platforms. Simple metal rods, accelerated by gravity, carrying devastating kinetic energy. No complex technology, no energy signatures to detect. Just mass and velocity, exactly what the Council's defenses weren't designed to stop. Admiral Thomas watched the tactical display as chaos erupted among the Council fleet. All units, execute Phase 3. Show them everything. Across Earth, humanity's full arsenal was revealed. Weapons platforms rose from desert sands. Mountain sides opened to reveal massive gun batteries. Every ship, every hidden bunker, every disguised installation began firing. The High Commander stared in horror as his fleet started taking damage. "Stop this. Your primitive weapons cannot defeat us. We are the Council. We command the fundamental forces of the universe." Walker watched another Council ship lose artificial gravity after a kinetic strike. "That's your problem. You command energy and radiation, gravity and quantum fields. But you forgot about the simplest force of all." "What force?" the High Commander demanded. "Newton's first law of motion," Walker said. "An object in motion stays in motion. And we've got a lot of objects headed your way." Chaos erupted across Earth's orbit as humanity's arsenal tore through the Council fleet. Ships that had never known defeat found themselves crippled by simple metal projectiles. Energy shields flickered uselessly as kinetic rounds passed straight through them, turning million-year-old technology into space debris. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. A Council officer shouted. "2 more ships lost. We can't track their weapons. There's no energy signature to lock onto." The High Commander gripped his command chair as another impact rocked the flagship. "Impossible. We are the Council. We have conquered galaxies. We cannot be defeated by primitive projectile weapons." Captain Walker stood calmly despite the chaos, watching Earth's response through the flagship's windows. "You know what your biggest mistake was, telling us exactly what your defenses could stop. Energy weapons, plasma, radiation. You were so proud of your shields. Never realized you were giving us the blueprint to defeat them." On Earth, Admiral Thomas coordinated the assault from the underground command center. Screens showed Council ships trying desperately to dodge the endless barrage of kinetic weapons. Their energy weapons blazed, but they were designed to hit targets broadcasting power signatures. Earth's weapons were simply metal in motion. No electronics, no energy emissions, nothing to target. Railgun Battery 6 reports direct hit on enemy command ship. An officer reported. Submarine-launched penetrators have disabled 4 more vessels. Orbital platforms continue gravity drop attacks. Thomas nodded. "Begin Phase 4. Show them what else they missed about primitive weapons." The next wave of Earth's arsenal revealed another surprise. Missiles that appeared simple on radar suddenly split apart, releasing clouds of metal pellets. The Council's point defense systems, designed to track energy weapons, couldn't handle thousands of small, unpowered projectiles. Multiple impacts across all decks. Council officers shouted as the flagship shuddered. Shield generators failing. Hull integrity compromised. The High Commander spun toward Walker. "Stop this. Your species cannot do this. Your weapons are inferior." "No," Walker said firmly. "Our weapons are different. You forgot that simple doesn't mean weak. A bullet doesn't care about your energy shields. A metal rod dropping from orbit doesn't need advanced guidance. Sometimes the most basic solution is the most effective." Across Earth's surface, more hidden weapons revealed themselves. Trucks that looked like civilian vehicles deployed telescoping rail gun barrels. Cargo ships opened hidden doors to launch salvos of missiles. Even old weapons found new purpose. Conventional artillery, reimagined with modern materials, proved devastatingly effective against ships optimized for energy combat. "Sir," a young lieutenant called out to Admiral Thomas, "the Council fleet is breaking formation. Multiple ships attempting emergency spacefold." Thomas allowed himself a grim smile. "Don't let them regroup. Execute final phase." The last phase of Earth's attack demonstrated just how thoroughly humanity had prepared. Hidden satellites activated, creating a web of gravitational distortion that prevented the Council ships from escaping. They had copied the technology from the Council's own ships, but powered it with good old-fashioned nuclear reactors, more primitive but far harder to detect and disable. On the flagship, the High Commander watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by weapons he had mocked just hours before. "How?" he demanded, turning to Walker. "How did you hide all this?" Our scans showed nothing but primitive technology. Walker gestured to a nearby impact hole, where a simple tungsten rod had punched through multiple decks. That's what we wanted you to see. Every time you scanned our primitive weapons, you proved you couldn't detect them. Every time you mocked our technology, you confirmed your own weakness. The flagship rocked with another impact. Emergency sirens wailed as more systems failed. Your fleet is in ruins, Walker continued. Your ships can't escape, and Earth's arsenals are still mostly full. Would you like to discuss surrender terms? The High Commander stared at the tactical display, watching more red icons vanish as Earth's primitive weapons found their marks. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this fight. They had revolutionized warfare by going backward, embracing simple physics over complex energy manipulation. Perhaps, the alien leader said slowly, we should reconsider our definition of primitive. 1 month after the Battle of Earth, Captain Walker stood in a very different council chamber. Gone were the sneering faces and condescending smiles. The remaining council leaders sat quietly, watching as human engineers installed new kinetic barrier systems alongside their energy shields. The terms are simple, Walker addressed the assembly. Earth will share its defensive technology with all council species. In return, the council will end its policy of forced protection and resource extraction. The records keeper, now promoted to chief administrator after the council's reformation, nodded in agreement. The old council's arrogance nearly destroyed us. It is time for genuine cooperation, not conquest disguised as protection. Admiral Thomas entered the chamber, carrying reports from across the galaxy. The revolution is spreading, he announced. 7 more subjugated worlds have overthrown their council overlords. Our weapons technology proved just as effective for them as it did for us. The former High Commander, now stripped of his position and serving as a junior diplomatic aide, watched the proceedings with a mixture of shame and fascination. To think, he muttered, we laughed at projectile weapons. We thought ourselves so advanced, we forgot the basic laws of physics. Walker remembered the battle, how Earth's primitive arsenal had torn through the most advanced ships in the galaxy. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, he said. You built defenses against energy weapons, gravity beams, and quantum disruptors. But you forgot about simple kinetic impact. On the main display, footage showed Earth ships helping to liberate other worlds. The sight of human vessels, still using chemical rockets and projectile weapons, working alongside advanced alien craft would have been unthinkable just months ago. The Council's biggest mistake, Thomas added, wasn't underestimating our weapons. It was thinking that newer automatically meant better. That complexity always beats simplicity. The records keeper approached Walker with a data crystal. We've found 17 more worlds under Council protection, all of them showing signs of resource extraction preparation. Would Earth be willing to help them as well? Walker took the crystal, remembering how this same alien had helped expose the Council's true nature. Of course, Earth remembers its friends, and we have plenty of railguns to share. In orbit above them, human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, installing hybrid defense systems on Council ships. Simple kinetic barriers worked together with energy shields, each covering the other's weaknesses. The new designs were already proving far more effective than the purely energy-based defenses of the past. The galaxy is changing, the records keeper observed. For the first time in millennia, species are sharing technology equally, learning from each other instead of conquering each other. Thomas smiled as another report came in. The Centaurians have already adapted our railgun designs for their ships. They're calling it a renaissance of physical warfare. Who would have thought going back to basics would revolutionize space combat? Walker watched as more ships arrived in Earth orbit, vessels from dozens of species, all coming to learn about the weapons that had defeated the undefeatable Council. We're not going back, he said. We're moving forward, just differently, taking the best of old and new technology. The former High Commander spoke up hesitantly. There is something I still don't understand. You knew our weaknesses, had weapons that could defeat us. You could have struck first, conquered us as we planned to conquer you. Why didn't you?" Walker turned to him. "Because that's the real difference between us. You saw other species as primitive, as resources to be exploited. We saw potential allies. Now look at the result. A stronger galaxy, united by mutual respect instead of fear." As if to emphasize his point, a new ship appeared in orbit. Its design combined Council energy drives with human projectile weapons, created through collaboration between multiple species. It represented everything the old Council had fought against: the sharing of knowledge, the mixing of technologies, the equality of all species. "You know what the funny thing is?" Thomas said, watching the new ship's test flight. "If you hadn't laughed at our guns, hadn't been so obvious about your contempt for primitive weapons, we might never have realized your weakness. Your arrogance defeated you before we fired a single shot." The records keeper nodded sagely. "Perhaps that will be the Council's final lesson. Never mistake simplicity for weakness, and never underestimate those you consider primitive. They might just surprise you."